In 1949, Mao Zedong stood before a massive crowd in Beijing and declared that China had finally stood up. After decades of civil war, invasion, and humiliation, millions believed a new era had begun. Long live Chairman Mao! Long live the revolution! Mao promised equality, strength, a society without poverty, landlords, or exploitation. And for many Chinese citizens, it felt like hope. But revolutions built on absolute certainty often demand absolute obedience. By 1958, Mao launched an ambitious campaign called the Great Leap Forward. Its goal was not simply to improve China, but to transform China overnight into an industrial and revolutionary superpower.
Surpass Britain, overtake the West. Grain production will double. Steel production will rise. The people can accomplish anything through revolutionary spirit.
Farmers were forced into giant collective communes. Private farming disappeared. Families surrendered land, tools, even cooking pots. Across China, peasants were ordered to build backyard steel furnaces, melting down tools and household goods in the name of industrial progress.
Chairman Mao's policies are working beyond expectations. Harvests have increased by 300%. The future belongs to socialism.
The campaign reached into every corner of daily life. Citizens were ordered to wage war against the four pests: rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. Across China, millions banged pots and pans, destroyed nests, and drove sparrows from the sky. The campaign appeared successful, but sparrows had been eating insects as well as grain. With their natural predators gone, insect populations exploded, damaging crops that were already under enormous strain. In Mao's China, success was expected. Failure could be interpreted as disloyalty, and disloyalty could destroy a career, or worse. Smoke covering the countryside, giant slogans promising industrial miracles. On paper, the revolution appeared unstoppable. Reports of record harvests poured in from every province. Production targets were shattered. Newspapers proclaimed a new era of abundance. But much of it existed only on paper. The numbers being reported to Beijing were lies. Local officials inflated harvest numbers to avoid punishment. Those lies moved upward through the Communist Party until Beijing itself was operating inside a fantasy. Fields were stripped bare, food was seized by the state, and famine began to spread across the countryside. Before students were denouncing teachers in the streets of Beijing, millions had already died quietly in rural villages. Some families survived on tree bark, roots, or grass. Villagers stripped bark from trees. In some provinces, entire villages fell silent. Tens of millions are believed to have died during the famine. The dead left no rallies, no slogans, no monuments. Only empty homes, abandoned villages, and families that would never be made whole again. Yet criticism of Mao remained dangerous. Fear replaced truth. Silence replaced honesty. Even within the Communist Party, some leaders quietly questioned Mao's policies. But Mao did not retreat. He escalated. In 1966, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. Officially, it was meant to purge counter-revolutionary thinking and preserve communist purity. But in practice, it became a movement that turned citizens against one another and transformed ideological loyalty into a weapon.
To rebel is justified. Destroy the four olds. Old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas.
Mao encouraged millions of teenagers and young adults to form militant groups called the Red Guards. Armed with the Little Red Book of Mao's quotations, they were given the authority to bypass the law and attack the enemies of the revolution. Their first targets were often the very people who had raised and educated them: teachers, professors, officials, and even their own parents.
Teacher, you taught us the classics of the past. You filled our heads with the poison of the old world. Why do you still wear that silk robe? Why do you keep these reactionary books in your home?
I only wanted to share the history of our people. I have always been loyal to the party.
Lies. You are a stinking intellectual. You will stand on the stage and confess your crimes to the people.
Across China, hundreds of thousands were publicly humiliated, beaten, imprisoned, or denounced in violent struggle sessions. Some were forced to wear placards listing their crimes, while students spat on them from the crowd. Intellectuals, doctors, scientists, and party officials were sent to the countryside for re-education through labor, forced to work in the fields while their life's work was burned in bonfires. The chaos didn't stop at the classroom. Families were torn apart as children were encouraged to inform on their parents to prove their revolutionary zeal.
I denounce my father. I heard him criticize the chairman's grain policy in the privacy of our kitchen. He is a class enemy. I have no father but the revolution.
Ancient temples were razed, historical artifacts smashed, cemeteries desecrated. China's past itself became an enemy to destroy. In many cities, fear became survival. To remain silent could make you suspicious. To defend someone could make you the next target. This was not chaos without direction. It was ideological terror reinforced by mass participation. By the time the movement ended with Mao's death in 1976, hundreds of thousands, possibly more than 1 million, had died, while millions more were persecuted, imprisoned, displaced, or publicly humiliated. The Great Leap Forward had shown what happens when truth becomes dangerous. The Cultural Revolution showed what happens when loyalty becomes more important than humanity itself. And in both movements, the pattern remained hauntingly familiar. Division, obedience, public harm, silence, and the destruction of anyone labeled an enemy of the revolution. In Mao's China, the revolution did not merely demand obedience. It demanded the betrayal of truth, the destruction of history, and eventually the turning of people against one another. This was a chilling masterclass in mass political persecution. It proved that when a state elevates an ideology to a secular religion, it can convince an entire generation that their neighbors, their teachers, and even their parents are enemies to be destroyed.